Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here every week to bring you the latest updates of what's happening around Google Workspace. This podcast is available from your regular podcast provider or also available in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7.
Coming up on the show today,
we have 4 updates for you today. We have updates from Google Chat, Google Vault, Google Drive and Google Meet. So let's get to it.
On with the show. Right, so first up, we've got a little update for you all today, which is all to do with Google Chat. So you can now find apps and app commands in Chat with a new integration menu. So this is potentially a little a small but mighty update, hopefully. So Google is making it easier to discover and use Chat apps with a new integration menu. Simply click on the plus button next to the compose bar in Chat Messages to see installed apps. So it's almost as if Google Chat has its own mini little app store now. You can also browse the / commands that the app supports and execute them. On the web, the integration menu includes a search functionality that allows you to browse new apps.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder what sort of apps they're going to integrate into that. I mean, for anybody not that familiar with Google Chat does integrate the Google sort of apps automatically. So, for example, I mean, we use it all the time here at Strawberry 7. Like, we'll open a chat and say we want to show each other something because my guys work remotely. Like, Adam works remotely, I work at home. And if Adam wants to show me something, he can just drop a Meet link directly into the chat with just one button, and then we can just go straight onto it. So helpful. The same with Drive and things like that. So with these apps, I wonder what else they're going to integrate. I suppose it's like the App Store, isn't it? It's just going to open it up and then it's whatever people create, I guess.
Yes, well, at the moment it looks as if there's around 123 apps in there, which include things like Giphy. There's one for Zoom. There's a separate one for Google Drive, even though, as you say, Google Drive does already integrate, but there's a new one for Google Drive. There's also apps for Zendesk and Freshdesk as well, which could be particularly helpful for users that use those platforms.
Yeah, that's very like us. So that's very
Just
very
like us.
interesting.
So that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Small but potentially mighty.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a real... We've been working here for a while about sort of toying with the idea of opening our support desk up to some kind of chat-based system to make it easier for our customers to be able to raise support tickets with us. So rather than just either raising them through the support desk or raising them through email, we've been trying to open it up a bit with chat. And I wonder if there's going to be an element in Google Chat where you can do that. Very interesting little update. You're quite right, Adam. Quite small, but potentially a lot of potential there for what that could yield. Who's that available for, Adam?
So this is going to be available to Google Workspace Essentials, Business Starter, Business Standard, Business Plus, Enterprise Essentials, Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Plus, Education Fundamentals, Education Plus, Education Standard, the Teaching and Learning Upgrade, Frontline and Legacy G Suite, Basic and Business customers. I'm not sure if anybody was actually missed off that list. Can you tell at a glance, Adam, is this just available to everyone?
I can't see... Oh, no, wait, Education Fundamentals is on there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody. I mean, I was going to say on the subject of education, it being available to the education SKUs, that anybody out there who's supporting schools like us, you might want to look at a bit of control over that. I know there isn't any information on the update here that Google's given us, Adam, about how to sort of enable this or whether it can be disabled, but I know a lot of schools do have Google Chat just disabled across the board anyway, so that would obviously take care of that. But if you are listening and you do have an education establishment that has chat enabled, I'd just be a bit conscious of this being available, that these apps can be installed, because particularly with Giphy, things like that might cause a bit of disruption there. But equally, there might be some quite fun applications that can be used with that. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next?
Right, up next, we've got an update all to do with Google Vault support for client-side encrypted emails. So Vault now support retention, search, and export of client-side encrypted emails. Note that admins can't preview the email body and attachments, including inline images. They'll only be able to see the subject line, sender, and receiver. Google Workspace already uses the latest cryptographic standards to encrypt all data at rest and in transit between customers and Google facilities. Client-side encryption helps strengthen the confidentiality of your data while helping to address a broad range of data sovereignty and compliance needs.
Okay, so I must admit, I'm a little bit confused about what Google's talking about there. I kind of thought I had it understood in the first part of the paragraph, but then I sort of wasn't sure in the second part. Am I right in thinking, I think I've got this right, that this was to do with supporting the export of client-side encrypted emails? And when it says client-side encrypted emails, whether it talks about third-party things like egress that are encrypting emails, but then in the second part of the paragraph, it was sort of talking about Google using the latest standards. So I thought then it's saying, when it's exported, it's kind of encrypting it. I wasn't too sure what it was kind of saying there. Do you know any more about that, Adam?
Because I know client-side encryption is one product, and so it looks like that is now almost integrating, or the feature for the emails is now within Google Vault, which is a separate product.
If I had to, my understanding of this, and I could be wrong, but my understanding of this is that Vault is now able to interact in the way of retention, search, and export of client-side encrypted emails, whereas it couldn't before. And I think when it says client-side encrypted emails, it's meaning emails that have been encrypted by something else, the client side, like some kind of third-party encryption.
Because before, if they'd been encrypted on the client side, then Google Vaults just still also would not have access to them, so it couldn't really do anything with them because they're encrypted.
Yeah, I believe that's what it's saying. I'm quite interested to know how Vault is able to interact with them, but then maybe that's why it's saying that you can't view the email body and attachments.
It's not decrypting them; it's just being able to handle the files.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I think that's right, Adam. Yeah, I think that's right. When are we going to see this available then, Adam?
Rapid release and scheduled release started on January the 17th.
Oh, great. Okay, so this will be available when this podcast airs. That's brilliant. And who's that available for?
This is going to be available to Google Workspace, Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, and Education Standard customers, which makes sense because I think those are the 3 tiers that also have access to client-side encryption.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. Okay, that's brilliant. Well, thank you, Adam. What have we got next?
Up next, we've got Google Drive. So there's a new beta to move folders from My Drive to shared drives, which is now available. So following the announcement of an improved admin experience to move folders from My Drive to shared drives, which was back in April 2022, so that was before we started doing this podcast, Google is introducing a beta that will allow end users to move folders from My Drive into shared drives. So extending the capability for end users to move folders from My Drive into shared drives increases the flexibility of sharing and helps to avoid permission escalations. Google is also updating My Drive and shared drive roles to create a more seamless experience when it comes to members and access levels. Currently, when an admin moves a folder from My Drive into a shared drive, all folder editors are converted to contributors by default. Starting now, when an admin or end user moves a folder from My Drive into a shared drive, the editors will be converted into content managers. This update will lead to the retention of users' ability to organize content and share folders.
Yeah, I definitely think, having done this myself a few times, I mean, we recently did it here, for example, we moved all the Strawberry 7's shared data finally from the central administrator's sort of My Drive to shared drives to make it a lot more appropriate. The moving of the data was okay, but it wasn't great. So I can definitely see that there's some good improvements there. And I think this is specifically as well talking about really it being available for the end users to be able to do this, because it does say in this update that currently, like when you're talking there about starting today, when an admin or an end user who's opted in for the beta. So I don't know whether they're saying both the admin and the end user could be opted in for the beta, but I think this is primarily sort of putting the power into the end users, because certainly from an admin point of view, you could move data from My Drive across to Shared Drive. There was an ability to do that, but it wasn't brilliant. I sort of understand why they're saying about the fact that they're going to change the access levels there around content managers or contributors. That does make a lot more sense. I think that there's some room for Google to make some more improvements on shared drives. Again, Google, if you're listening, please, could you make some of these changes? It's something that we've encountered not just with our clients, but even with us internally. And I really think Google are quite against making these changes because of the way that they handle folders. But I wish they would sort of understand a little bit about how people don't just want to work the way that Google want them to work the whole time. So a good example is within Strawberry 7. We've got a Strawberry 7 shared folder, which is where most of our content is. And within there, we had an HR folder with each of you guys in. Like you, Adam, you had a folder. I think I had a folder and the other guys had a folder. But obviously, I don't want you to all be going into each other's folders because your confidential data is in there. But the trouble is, with Shared Drive, you can't restrict people down and then elevate them again lower down. So it's got that real restriction where I couldn't say to you guys, okay, you've got editor rights at, say, the shared level, but then you've only got viewer rights or you've got no rights at the individual HR level. It was like, no, I'm going to continue these rights all the way down. So it sort of made it very difficult to achieve what we were trying to achieve with those folders. And the result was what we had to do was we had to end up making separate shared folders. I had to make separate shared folders for each of you just to go in for your HR thing. Now, I know that Google would turn around and say, yes, that's what we want you to do. But the problem is you just end up with so many shared folders then at the top level, and you don't really want like 100 shared folders at the top level necessarily. I don't think. I think it just makes it quite overwhelming at the top level when you're seeing all of those different folders. I think it's much better to have fewer folders at the top level, and then when you start going in, that's when you start branching off to then the more detail of where you might want to go.
Yeah, you've said pretty much exactly what I was just about to say, really. I expect Google's answer to that kind of situation would be just make a new shared drive for the folders that you want to have different permissions, but then you definitely would run into the risk, particularly with larger businesses, where you just end up with too many shared drives. And I always feel that less is more. I would much rather just see one or two or the handful of shared drives that you actually need, and then you can work your way down from there. But I don't want to see 100 different shared drives for different folders with all different permissions. I think that could become a bit messy, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to clarify there what I was saying, I've just had a little look through the drives whilst we've been recording this. The problem is, let's say we take the HR folder and then you've all got your individual employees in there. If you give read access to the employees at the HR level, so you just have them as viewers, even if you just set them as viewers at the HR folder level, which you have to do, otherwise they can't get into the folder, they can't see it or they can't get into it. Within the folder, the individual folders, the individual employee folders, everybody will have viewer access to those as well. You can't remove them. You can't say, no, I don't want them to have any access. It says, no, the folder above, you've given them viewer access there. So the minimum level that you can give them to the folders within is viewer. You can't then give them lower access to the folders that are within that. And it's a real shame. It's a real sticking point that I've had with shared folders for quite a while. So I just wanted to make that clear about how those work.
So if anyone is interested in signing up for this beta, there is I think it's a Google form actually that everyone can fill in to sign up with. We've included a link in the documents that we attach with our podcasts, and once the beta is enabled by your admin, you'd be able to then move a folder by selecting the folder within your My Drive, clicking on it, and then select Move To, and then stem down to the name of the folder where you want to move it to. Google will begin accepting new domains into the beta program in the coming weeks, so that should be coming up quite soon. And then the rapid release and scheduled release for all of this started on January the 18th.
Excellent. That's great. So that'll be available for everybody when this podcast airs. And I think it's shorter to say who this is not available for. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, definitely. So this is not available to Google Workspace Business Starter, Frontline, and Legacy G Suite Basic customers. It's also not available to users with a personal Google account, and that makes sense. So everyone else should have access to this.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. So most people are going to get access to that. It's just those sort of very basic accounts that won't. Okay, that's wonderful. So we've just got one more update. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, that's right. So last update from us for this week is to do with Google Meet. So new built-in interoperability between Google Meet and Zoom. So as previously announced in October, Google is introducing video conferencing device interoperability for Google Meet with Zoom, which will allow you to join Zoom meetings from Google Meet hardware devices and also join Google Meet meetings from Zoom rooms. I think that the really key piece of information to do with this is to do with Google Meet hardware. It does not mean that if you're using Google Meet on the web, you can join Zoom meetings from Google Meet on the web, or the other way around. This update is definitely to do with Google Meet hardware and also Zoom hardware as well. I'm thinking Zoom hardware. If Zoom has hardware, it's relevant to that.
Zoom rooms, whatever they are, yeah. No, that's a very, very good point, Adam. We were talking about this before we started recording, and Adam wanted to make it very clear to you that it's not, being able to join Google Meet meetings from Zoom and things like that. It's just to do with the hardware. In addition to what Adam has said, I just wanted to highlight that there are some more technical details about this update and what it is and isn't supported with on Zoom, as well as some mentions of Cisco WebEx and some mentions of PEXIP. I think I'm saying that right, PEXIP. Which we're not familiar with, but if that's something that you want to know more about, if this update is relevant to you and you want to know some more information about some of the restrictions or some of the processes here, or about WebEx or PEXIP, then please have a look at the document, which we always link in this podcast for more information there. I'll hand back over to you, Adam, so that you can tell people how to get started with this. And everybody pay attention, because this is quite a long-winded sort of bit here with all of the different configuration options.
Thanks, Adam. So to get started with this, for the Zoom interop on Google Meet hardware, so for the admins, Zoom interop on Google Meet hardware will be available on devices by default and can be disabled in the Workspace admin console at the OU level by going to Devices, Google Meet hardware, Settings, Device Settings, then built-in interoperability. Just a note on that, this admin setting can be configured before this feature begins rollout. Therefore, you'll be able to you'll have the ability to toggle this off before January the 25th. So spoiler alert for when this is becoming available. To configure no knock for joining Zoom meetings from Meet hardware. So I think that's a bit like if you're joining a meeting, you do not need to ask the host's permission to join the meeting. You'll just be able to go straight in. So if you're wanting to configure that, you can generate a token in the Zoom admin at Account Management, Account Settings, Meeting, allow my organization's third-party conference room systems to join my Zoom meetings as an authorized user, and paste it in the Google Workspace admin at Devices, Google Meet hardware, Settings, Service Settings, built-in operability direct access. So there's definitely a combination of using the Zoom admin and Google admin platforms there in order to make this work together. So for the end users, if they want to get started with this, once it's been enabled by your admin, you can join a Zoom meeting from a Google Meet hardware device by joining an ad hoc meeting by tapping on Join or Start a Meeting on your touch controller and selecting Zoom from the drop-down options. You can also join a scheduled meeting by adding a room to an event with Zoom meeting details. Just a note on that, calendar events that originate outside of Google Calendar must be duplicated and populated with room details manually, or have their Zoom join details copy and pasted into the description field of the new calendar event. So to get started with the Meet interop on Zoom Rooms, so for admins, Meet interop on Zoom Rooms will be off by default and can be enabled from the Zoom admin at Room Management, Zoom Rooms, Meeting, Support Google Meet, Web Client Meeting on Zoom Rooms. But if you need a bit more information from that, then you should have a look at the Zoom support page to configure no-knock join for meet meetings from Zoom Rooms. Too many of these words all rhyme with each other. So to configure no-knock meetings for Zoom Rooms, generate a token in the Workspace admin console at Apps, Google Workspace, Settings for Google Meet, interoperability tokens, and then paste it into the Zoom admin in the Google Meet interop token field located at Room Management, Zoom Rooms, Support Google Meet, Web Client Meetings on Zoom Rooms. Then for the end users, once it's been enabled by your admin, you can join a Meet meeting from a Zoom room by joining an ad hoc meeting from your Zoom room controller by entering a Google Meet meeting code, joining a scheduled meeting by adding your room to an event with Google Meet details. And again, for more information, have a look at the Zoom support page if you require a bit more detail about that. Finally, so for the rollout pace for the Zoom interop on Meet hardware, so for the admin settings, rapid release and scheduled release began on January the 19th. For the end users of availability on their hardware devices, rapid release and scheduled release is beginning on January the 26th. Meet interop on Zoom Rooms, rapid release and scheduled release is available immediately on January the 26th. so not available immediately. It will be available on January the 26th.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam, and well done getting through all of that technical language. Who would have guessed that all of that was written by a bunch of nerds, right? I mean, it's just, that is pretty technical sort of settings and language there, but there's a lot of good information there for anybody who's sort of struggling to follow along on the audio. Don't forget that like I said before, we've got this linked on a document in the podcast settings, the description, sorry. So have a little look in the podcast description and you'll be able to find a link to go through and find all of these details here. Was there anything else that you needed to add about that, Adam? I think there's some availability information here, which again is a little bit complicated because there's availability from Zoom side and the Meet side and things like that. Is that right?
Yes, so for the availability, so Zoom interop on Google Meet hardware is available to all Google Workspace customers as well as G Suite Basic and Business customers with Google Meet hardware. All currently supported Google Meet hardware devices that have not yet reached their auto update expiration date will receive this feature. So essentially, as long as your device is still receiving updates, then you should be able to use this. For the Meet interop on Zoom Rooms is available to all Zoom Rooms customers on a supported Zoom Rooms device or appliance. Note that your device may not fully support the feature until its manufacturer has pushed the latest Zoom Room software update to its devices. So to me, that also almost sounds like if you're using the Zoom Rooms, maybe you're using third-party hardware, and so then you need the manufacturer of that hardware to push out the latest updates in order for you to have full access to this. Finally, just one more time, please refer to the Zoom support page to see the most up-to-date list on supported devices and platforms.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, yeah, that's the big takeaway, I suppose, for whether this is supported or not. At least you can go onto that support page and see whether your device is supported on there. Lovely. Thank you, Adam. I know it was a bit of a struggle to get through, so well done getting through all of those complicated words that are exactly the same and interoperability and things like that. So well done getting through all of that. That's it, everybody. That's everything you need to know about all of the latest updates happening around Google Workspace. As always, this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
We'll be back again next Monday with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye.